Welcome back then. This week we've seen Spain in the spotlight for its part in the Eurozone debt crisis, and today focus moving in fact to Portugal. Tell us more, Will.
Yeah, the EU Commissioner for Finance, Olli Rehn, he's on a visit to Portugal today. Now, just ahead of that, we had news from Portugal that they are ahead of schedule with their plans to implement reforms that are asked for by the EU and the IMF. This was, of course, after they received a bailout. But there are still, nonetheless, worries that, a second bailout might be needed. Those reforms, of course, included, as elsewhere in the EU, cutting services, increasing taxes and liberalising labour markets. These don't seem yet, though, to be having an effect on GDP, or if they are, they're having an effect in the wrong direction. Let's take a look at the figures. For 2011, GDP dropped by 1.6%. This year is estimated to be at least double that. Well, pretty much double that, and probably more. So it is not having a good effect yet, and there are worries that a second bailout will be needed. We'll be hearing more about this throughout the day.
OK, we're next to another struggling EU economy. This time it's Hungary. On Tuesday, European finance ministers voted to cut development money for the country as a punishment, really, for not meeting its deficit reduction targets. While its government has accepted the move, some have questioned why countries within the Eurozone have not received similar treatment.
Hungary is in the hot seat. The country may lose nearly 500 million euros in development aid. European Union finance ministers voted on Tuesday to sanction Hungary if it does not take measures to bring its deficit below the EU's 3% limit.
This provides a strong incentive for Hungary to conduct sound and sustainable fiscal policy. Effective action by the Hungarian authorities in response to the new EDP recommendations will lead to the lifting of suspensions before they become effective.
The warning to Hungary's government is clear. Cut the deficit or we will cut funding. The Hungarian Deputy Prime Minister remains hopeful that his government can find a solution.
Our goal is to resolve as many ambiguous situations as possible. We want to create an atmosphere of trust between Hungary and the three institutions, the IMF, the EU and the European Central Bank, that ensures a relatively quick start to the talks and possibly a quick conclusion as well.
The decision came after a tough debate between finance ministers. It is the first time the EU has sanctioned a country for going over the 3% limit, despite the fact that 23 of the 27 countries in the EU have exceeded the debt ceiling in the past. Some argued Hungary is being unfairly singled out as an example, but the final decision was for stricter enforcement of EU laws. There have already been protests in Hungary over the current economic crisis, and further government cuts may exacerbate Hungary's economic woes.
And we're talking Eurozone, and we've got some positive news, or that's what Will thinks anyway. This is about Greece.
Well, it's more positive than negative, I suppose. Fitch, the ratings agency, has upgraded it a notch. Many might argue, of course, that the ratings agency, all of them, were very slow to downgrade Greece before the crisis. But I suppose it's better than another downgrade. Greece has, of course, been rated as junk status for quite some time, but it did get that second bailout confirmed this week.
And the market's been very positive in the US. So the European ones following suit?
Yeah, they are optimistic at the moment. Early days, of course, the European market's just opening up. But the Dow Jones yesterday closed at its highest level since 2007. You can see that the European markets are following on. Meanwhile, over in Asia, it's been a bit more of a mixed picture. Japan has been doing well. The Nikkei there is positive due to weakening of the yen. Meanwhile, Chinese stocks, as you can see, are down. Positive on comments from Premier Wen Jiabao. He said measures to cool the housing sector won't be relaxed. There was a bit of a hope that they would be eased. And you can see that the markets haven't taken a shine to those comments.
Now, rare earths, by that I do mean bits of actual earth. They may not be well known as a household product, but they're essentially to a lot of high-tech kit, because they're right at the centre of that high-tech kit, and also at the centre of a trade spat between China and other major economies. Tell us more about this, Will.
Yes, they include scandium, yttrium and 15 other elements. You may not know them all by name, Stuart. I'm not going to test you.
Most.
But they are, like you say, essential to products, not just consumer tech such as batteries for products such as iPads, electric cars. They're also essential to high-tech weapon systems, such as the latest US jet fighters and guided missiles. The US, Japan and the EU are accusing China, which produces 95% of the world's rare earths, of limiting exports, and they're taking it to the World Trade Organization over this. Now, to talk more about this and get a bit of insight on this, we're joined by Ivar Shrego, who's chairman of Rare Earths Global, which operates mining facilities in China. Thanks very much for joining us this morning, Mr. Shrego. What do you make of these claims by the EU, the US and Japan that China is limiting its quotas?
Well, the problem is that it is a finite resource. China declared this to be a protected and strategic material some 20 years ago. So the rest of the world have known the view that China has taken, and it is, as I said, it is a finite resource. The Americans and the others took a deliberate decision some 20, 25 years ago that they would not develop their own mines. Remember that there are 110 million tons of provable, extractable resources in the world, of which China has half, 55 million. The United States itself has 13 million. Russia and its satellites have about 19 million. So there's plenty of rare earth going around which could easily be extracted by the others. And indeed, with the price rises recently, Molycorp and Lynas have started developing their own mines. Molycorp closed its own mine down about 10 years ago.
And what do you think the reasons are behind this World Trade Organization case then?
Well, the timing of this is interesting. It is, as I've said before, it is an election year, and this is a fairly political subject. China is being careful. It did close down some years ago the cowboy mines. It's obviously very conscious of the environmental effects, and it controls it very strictly.
Ivar Shrego, thanks very much. That's Ivar Shrego, chairman of Rare Earths Global, joining us here on France 24, and that was Will as well with the business. Good stuff. He's back, of course, tomorrow morning. We are as well, but Claire's here really shortly with the latest, so stay with us if you can.